Well, this raises for me a number of really interesting questions, and let me just lay out a couple of them that come to me listening to this and looking through the material. So is a doctor an officer to whom the staff order applies? Because clearly it's not an issue simply of being employed to the government service, since there seems to be no problem with teachers.
Blessings, ABR family and viewers. Welcome back to the channel. It's your girl, Isabel Rose. And in this one, a senior executive at NCB charged for rape, as well as cop hunts and targets female gang boss. And more on the interdiction of Dr. Aujae Dixon in a sit-down interview with Dion Jackson Miller and relevant authorities speak on the matter. Stay tuned for the details at hand. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. I also want to big up all the members of the ABR membership, and a special big up to my VIP member who upgraded her membership, Joy Barnes. You too can become a member. You get a lot of benefits, member shoutouts, star badges beside your name, only a small fee per month to be a member of the ABR movement. Support the thing, please and thanks. Now, according to news media, it's alleged that a senior executive at the National Commercial Bank, that's NCB, who goes by the name of Dane Nicholson, is facing serious criminal charges in connection with alleged sex-related offenses involving a female employee. Court records and law enforcement sources have revealed Nicholson, who heads the NCB Fraud Prevention Division, was charged with 6 counts of rape and 2 counts of grievous sexual assault. Now, I want you to take a look at this gentleman's picture, and let us be fair here. This is a well put together gentleman in a suit and tie. And so what could have possessed a gentleman such as this to want to assault a female employee? Let alone being charged with 6 counts of rape and 2 counts of grievous sexual assault. And each time we hear of women being abused, we hear of our girls being abused, we keep calling on this government, asking for the sex offenders registry to be public so we can know who are the, monsters walking and living amongst us. Why is it so hard for the sex offenders registry to be made public? A lot of these men, they don't love and they don't like women. When you love man and love bottom, why we not go on to the man and bottom? Nobody not harass you, nobody not fight you. Look at this man here. Them are the criminal, them in a suit and tie out there. But we have to going back. If the head of the stream that governs our country not clean, the bottom cannot be clean. Stop harassing and sexually assaulting our women and our girls. No means no. Left the woman them and left the pitney them. Some big hard back great tone man. I only me a chat to. Women who are found guilty as well in molesting our children. Left the pitney them alone. I mean, now say it again. If this man is found guilty of all of these charges, he must face the full penalty of the laws. We're tired of our women and our children being abused. We are sick and tired of it. You know, from when Mark Golding called for women to be able to basically carry pepper spray legally, to use it on these predators and monsters, and to no avail, no push forward of this bill that was brought to the parliament by the opposition. So what did we really, or what really went down for this current administration to be deserving of a 3rd term? A whole heap of ism and schism and robbery and intimidation. But they don't want us to talk. We are not going to stop talking we need to get the help alert line up and running and get the ladies to carry the pepper spray so them can ward off these predators. Women cannot manage men's strength. We can't fight off men when them in a heat and them body in a heat and them want hold us against our will. The full length of the law for all those who are molesting and raping and robbing our children and our women of their innocence. Me nah no lots and part with you fe go. And due to the fact that today is Friday, we get a whole heap of brata in these information being brought forward. And I want you all to watch out the entire videos, them like and share them out. And if you're new to the channel, please to subscribe. Now in this segment, we're seeing a senior superintendent of police, Aaron Samuels, who hails from the St. James area, letting us know that a female gang boss is at the top of their list right now. She's basically the target. She allegedly leads a gang who goes around and rob people. And the police are determined to dismantle this crime syndicate. Now, from you're a criminal and you're involved and engaged in criminal activities, me nah no lots and part with you. And I must applaud the law-abiding policemen and women for doing their job and doing it well and effectively. But he says, for this quarter, we will be fully pursuing this female-led robbery syndicate. We'll be pushing hard against this syndicate to ensure that we bring the robberies right down. We're going into the Yuletide season and we want persons to be able to shop in peace. So we are get down to the whole Christmas festivities. And they want people to shop in peace. Many persons now have the money for shopping this Christmas season here with all that is going on right now with our economy stagnant. Right? No production, no productivity. Cost of living going up as we speak. But yet still you have some people where when you sweat for your one, them want to come take it. Well, is a woman around this clique here. And they said she goes by the name of Monica Toots. And we know, say a whole heap of women were mixed up in a whole heap of criminal activities. Whether them a carry the steel for the criminals, them criminal men, or them a wash the blood up clothes for them pity them criminal men. But we have some women who are accomplices to a whole heap of crime and criminal activities we are going on in our country. And a time for we eradicate it and a time for we get rid of them. Once and for all. So now we see they're exercising their power on a Dr. Aujae Dixon, who is a junior resident at the Mapen Hospital for, challenging the incumbent down there in the general election of September 3rd, 2025. And we see them run out and say breach, the law. And they have basically gone ahead to interdict him. He's not sure as yet how much they will cut his pay by. But we are awaiting to hear more. We heard that the People's National Party is standing behind Dr. Aujae Dixon and is willing to support him in whatever he decides to do. And I have a snippet here from an interview with Dion Jackson Miller along with some former civil, servant chairperson and a lawyer who is versed in the whole employment and labor law. And while I stated in a previous video that this seems to me to be a political victimization of Dr. Aujae Dixon, and I said that due to the fact that why should it go for certain civil servants and not for others? So we're seeing them put on them foot as it relates to Dr. Aujae Dixon, but then we have teachers or principals who have run in elections, and no sanctions as this. We've seen doctors from both sides of the aisle take part in the whole campaign and election, and no sanctions. So what is the difference between a Dr. Aujae Dixon versus those? But then we've seen Dr. Kia Josina Duncan chiming in, and she says there are several public sector doctors who have been candidates on both sides. The tradition is that you resign if you won. This is political victimization. So she's arguing that the tradition is if you're running at the election as a doctor and you win, you would automatically have to resign because you can't do two jobs, right? But we see them exercise them power right now upon Aujae Dixon. But I want you to hear this interview and on a pick the sense out of it and on a pick the reality out of it. And we're going to see clearly that this is definitely political victimization.
Dr. Aujae Dixon has been put on interdiction by the Southern Regional Health Authority. The authority is saying he breached a staff order that forbids him or officers to participate in any type of partisan political activity in any elections at any level. And we're going to be talking and getting comment on this issue. We're going to be talking to O'Neil Grant, former president of the Jamaica Civil Service Association, as well as attorney at law Caroline Harris Roper, principal consultant at Employers Matters Caribbean. Just before I bring them in, I was saying to you that this, and saying to them as well, this raises for me a number of really interesting questions, and let me just lay out a couple of them that come to me listening to this and looking through the material. So it's a doctor and officer to whom this staff order applies, because clearly it's not an issue simply of being employed to the government service, since there seems to be no problem with teachers. Two, I would say, is a rule constitutional as per the 2011 Charter of Rights, because really and truly we have to get Jamaicans away from this reciting like an automaton, rules are rules, because rules have to be looked at within our constitutional context. Three, I would also in that context, I would say, is a restriction on someone's right to run for office, demonstrably necessary in a free and democratic society, which is what our Constitution says. And in the context of that, I would also ask, is a category that somebody belongs to in the public service important? In other words, would you be able to make an argument that a permanent secretary shouldn't be able to run for office as opposed to a doctor? Does it matter? Is it different? In other words, what's the mischief or problem that's created? With a permanent secretary, would you be making the argument that this could affect how they're seen and perhaps could affect their advice? Does it matter in the case of a doctor? Would it affect how he or she does his or her job? And therefore, as Senator Gale is saying, Cavan Gale, is it something we should revisit? So just a whole lot of really interesting issues, I think, here. And thank you so much for joining us, O'Neil Grant, Caroline Harris Roper. Always a pleasure to talk to you both.
It's a pleasure as well, Leon. Hi, hi, Carlo.
Hi, O'Neil.
Mr. Grant, let me ask you to start us off, especially based, of course, on your years of experience with the civil service and your knowledge of how it works and this issue of the politics. Tell me, what's your thinking on this issue?
Well, I know yes, we should try and apart from saying the rules are the rules, but the nature of the public service is that it is supposed to present itself as impartial and neutral where politics is concerned. And the staff orders are clear. And the question also arises as to whether or not it's applicable to a medical doctor. And the test of that is whether or not the post falls on the Civil Service Establishment Act. I think when we examine the Section 3, I think, of Civil Service Establishment Act, it sets out within the framework of the Constitution and the definition of the public service why these posts were created and classified the way they are. Now, what we are now asking ourselves in the current dispensation is whether or not the application of that rule is consistent with what is in the Constitution. It may not be. However, that is something that has to be challenged and tested because as it stands, no one before has tested the constitutionality of that provision within the staff orders arising from Section 3 of the Civil Service Establishment Act, which is passed by Parliament each year to give the Minister of Finance the power to bring posts within the public service before the Parliament for them to be paid and for them to be represented as part and parcel of the Central Civil Service. Now, for teachers, they are governed under the Education Act, and the Education Act is silent. There is no mention anywhere about the teachers not being able to participate in political activity, and they have always had that, should I say, that privilege from ever since, that they can participate in partisan politics, but the regular central administrative civil servant was always barred on the Westminster model from participating in partisan politics. And if you examine what happens in England, from where we get our model, they are also forbidden from participating. However, there has been modification that allows certain levels within the Westminster model to participate in public administration and political activity, and it may be necessary for us now to examine whether or not we have reached a point in our development as a nation that we can now look at persons who are at certain levels, who are not decision makers in ministries, departments, and agencies, that they can be allowed to participate in the election process. But of course, you can't wear two hats, you can't serve two masters. If you're a legislator, you're a legislator. You can't be a legislator and administrator at the same time. And that is where we know determine when one should end and when one should begin. But I think it's something that we should be looking at.
I appreciate all of that. And just to clarify two things, when I say we need to stop this rules are rules argument, I mean clearly I'm not saying we shouldn't have rules, not at all. I'm just saying people tend to say rules are rules as if that's an end to the discussion, and it can't be. It's a starting point, but especially when you have rules that have been coming from decades, you have to look at it, as you mentioned, in the context of modern society, and also, as I said, in the context of our Charter of Rights. And you also have to look at the reasons for those rules. So, for instance, the very point that you're making in terms of the fact that these are things we inherited from the British, the whole idea of not allowing civil servants to participate in elections and partisan political activity was to uphold the idea of the civil service as politically neutral. Right. Which is why I raise the issue of the category of persons. So how is it that we're okay with teachers but we're not okay with doctors? You know, the anomaly does have to be looked at and at least discussed. But Carla and Harris-Ropel, let me bring you in at this point and ask you for your thoughts.
Oh, this is such as you said, an interesting area. I agree with a lot of what O'Neill has said, but I'm not sure if you're aware, Dion, there was a case in Barbados that sort of touched and concerned this with similar types of restrictions in their public service. Case of Natalie Murray and Attorney General. And basically, Miss Murray went on a political platform during the 22 elections there, and their general orders, which is akin to our staff orders, forbid public servants from active political participation, including canvassing, holding party office, or speaking at political meetings. She challenged that as being unconstitutional, saying that it infringed her rights to freedom of expression and freedom of association. And the real issue is somewhat what you have touched, and O'Neill as well, whether the blanket prohibition was constitutional, and whether or not, based especially on our now Charter of Rights, juxtaposing, and we'd have to look at that proportionality test, whether or not it is demonstrably justified. And in our case, I think it is ripe for... I'm
so sorry, before you get to our case, I understand, if I remember correctly, in the Murray case, that she won the case?
Yes, she did.
Right.
It was declared unconstitutional, overly broad, and disproportionate. and the disciplinary proceedings which had commenced against her were permanently stayed.
Okay. You were saying in our case?
Right. I'm trying to catch my thought now.
My
I
apologies.
believe, no problem. I believe it really should be tested because we are not at the same place where we were in 1962. That is why in 2011 we have had the change. So we have had so many cases that have been coming that have been, relying on the principles that have been set out under the Charter of Rights, or what's the name of that case, Dion, with the young lady with her hair over in the school over Portmore.
Kensington Primary.
Right. The NIDS case as well. We have been having cases that have been looking purposefully at, where are we as a nation and how are we to operate within society.
ABR family and viewers, we're now going to make this longer than it is. Please go ahead, voice your opinion in the comment section. Make we continue the discussion. Please to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. On the road to 50K, help me to get there. Get this video to at least 7,000 likes. Please stay tuned for more videos. Stay tuned for more updates. Big up on yourself. Happy Friday.